You are Locked On Coogs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Before we get to that point, I do want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, and Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, two teams, two Big 12 quarterbacks, endless possibilities, and there's no better way to get in on the action, make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook, whether it's predicting the first touchdown, the MVP, even betting on the coin toss. FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action while live betting all game long. You can adjust your bets as the game unfolds, like I might be doing to make sure I'm keeping up with the game, and feel the thrill from kickoff to final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. You can put down $5. If that hits, you can get $200 back in bonus bets for the rest of the Super Bowl. That's the icing on the cake this month. Download the app or head over to FanDuel.com to get started. $5 down. If you win, you get $200 back in bonus bets at FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 59. Park Ranger, Locked On Coogs here, talking about Houston and Oklahoma State meeting a second time, this time in the Fertitta Center, as Houston is ready to host the Pokes. Now, Houston won the first matchup 60-47, and I've said in the first segment, I'll say it again, it really wasn't even that close, right? 3.5 minutes to go, Houston's up 20 and kind of, lets the foot off the gas. Oklahoma State hit a couple shots. Houston tried to stall the ball out on shot clock kind of stuff, and it didn't go, it got closer than it maybe felt like. You were able to, in the first game, feed Robert in the post. Lots of isolation moves from the mid post, passing out of it, a lot of skip to a hockey assist kind of moments for him. And schematically, you got to think Lutz and Oklahoma State are going to watch this film, break this, and say, okay, look, we can't play him one-on-one. What are we going to do? And I think you're going to see a lot of doubling him early in the game to kind of get Houston out of that as their go-to play. It just feels like a natural thing for a coach to do, to get them out early, to make them think, okay, what other wild card kind of things we get to? And then if Houston adjusts and you can make your adjustment, kind of play that chess game the rest of the way. The way I would get into this, right, because they clearly have no one that can play Roberts one-on-one, is much like you saw in kind of some of those isolation moves against Texas Tech. I would have LJ Cryer on the same side of the floor, kind of either floating up to the slot or fading back to the corner, to kind of keep his man in motion with him. And so that way, anytime that J'Wan Roberts does get double from the front side, he's got Cryer there to kick it out to. Cryer did have 18 points the first time these two teams met. And so he feels confident going into this one as well. And then on the back side of things, I would have back cut options. I would have hammers, and I would have all kinds of different things to kind of keep guys moving on the backside of these isolation kind of sets, however you want to get to them. But I think you need to make sure you have them all in what we would call above the floor. So if Roberts is posting in the mid post at the second tick mark, all three of the backside players need to be above the second tick mark on that respective side of the floor, right? If he's down the block, they can be a little bit lower. If he's up closer to the foul line, they kind of need to be a little bit higher, because I need him to be able to see them over his shoulder, because the Cryer on his side, the double is going to have to come from one of those three other guys. You're not going to double off a Cryer, right? And so he's a great passer. He throws a great skip pass across the floor. I think those kinds of angles, though, are better when they're all above him. If Roberts is in the mid post and his double is coming from the backside corner, that's, as good a passer he is, kind of a ridiculous pass to just expect the guy to make on a dime, even if you're calling out that it's coming, right? And so I think that you'll see some guys elevate a little bit up the court on that kind of stuff. Houston didn't have to in the first time these two teams played. I think what stuck out to me is something that they could adjust to the adjustment with. So we'll see on that. I don't know who Houston has that you go hot off of, in the sense that's you automatically double off that guy every time. That's what we would call it. 24 is hot, 24 is hot, and then whoever's covering 24 has to go double the post. I don't think Houston's got a hot guy like that, but we'll see. Certainly going to be missing some shooting without Emmanuel Sharp, obviously. But and then Cryer had 18 in this one the first time, and there was a lot of catch and shoot movement threes, 4 of 8 from downtown. Then a couple of his twos were just pump fakes and driving after that catch and shoot, similar kind of action. You have to imagine that on guard to guard screens, they're going to do a lot of switching and things like that to kind of keep pressed up on the 3-point line, especially because of how much it hurt him the first time. I wonder if the answer to that is more of the dribble handoff action with him and Roberts, kind of forcing that play side of what I'm talking about. Nothing Houston doesn't do, just doing it from a little bit different angle of the floor. Seems like a cheap addition and a way to kind of counterbalance things that Oklahoma State could do to get in your head a little bit or get in your scheme a little bit. Offense, I guess I should point out what Oklahoma State could be adjusting to an offense. I have to imagine they're looking to get these shooters open more. Brandon Newman had a pretty good game against Houston the first time. Guy comes off the bench. He's a good shooter. He shoots 35% behind the arc. He had 12 points against Houston. Shea Avery, Shea Avery. I forget what Cody was calling him last time we talked. He shoots 37% from three behind the arc on 8.5 attempts per game. That's up from last time we played them. Bryce Thompson, similar kind of thing, 38% on 4.5 attempts per game. Both those guys are shooting more shots per game. I've seen their percentages stay level or rise. So I think Oklahoma State's going to be hoping to find some hot hand in this one with some movements of their own. And then Arturo Dean, their new point guard, is a lot more of a distributor type of guy. And so I feel like they're going to kind of think that he can speed the game up and find those cutters and open shooters. Now, Houston watches plenty of video. Houston knows who these guys are. I'm not sure that there's like a bunch of schematic things that I think Houston's got to do to find those shooters. I do think that you saw against Tech that it's one game samples, right? And people can get hot. They already got some guys that can shoot. And in that sense, it does feel kind of like Tech over the weekend where you think going in, you don't worry about the point guard shooting as much, and then he lights you up for, hits his first 3 threes. I think he finished with 4 threes. They have shooters around this point guard a lot like Tech does. Now, Tech's guys are better at other aspects of basketball. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I think you can run some of these Oklahoma State guys off the line and kind of live with the results after that. But on the whole, I would look at like what kinds of things can you do to make sure that there are no catches in either slot or either wing. And that's what I would think they're trying to take away is all that slot and wing action to pop out for 3. Again, the only guy that really hurts you on them, the first one was Brandon Newman, but Shea Avery and Bryce Thompson are shooting a lot more threes per game now. And they're pretty good shooters. So you want to make sure that you're out there covering them. I think that has to be a function of Arturo Dean being a point guard. I watched 1 or 2 a game and then a condensed game of them to get ready for this one since Tech. Mostly because I thought I kind of knew what about them, but when they have a new point guard, obviously you want to see what they do. It does feel like they're still running the same like pro-ish feeling kind of offense. I don't know if that's the best thing for the personnel, but it's clearly what Lutz wants to do. And at some point you got to, go down swinging the way you like to swing, right? I think Houston does pretty well in this game. I know people hate when I predict blowouts, especially when it's against a top 25 team like it was over the weekend. I don't think Houston's going to have a lot of problems in this one, even with Emmanuel out, even with the health of Francis kind of up in the air. I think the more problematic thing will be if someone else breaks a shoelace and you got to take them out of the game for a few minutes. Like, what are you going to do about that, right? And I don't know that Oklahoma State's got enough fixes to play and run with a healthy Houston. Houston could shoot the ball poorly and could have to rely on their defense. And obviously, Oklahoma State does rebound the ball pretty well in this matchup. I just feel pretty strongly that between just the talent level disparity that we saw in the first game, and then honestly, I think after the final whistle sounded on Saturday against Texas Tech, if you're a gambler over at FanDuel, you should have put every single dollar on Houston to beat Oklahoma State on Tuesday night because of the kind of like I don't know what adjective to put on what you hear about the kind of practices, but the way that Sampson runs things after a loss is pretty much to ensure those guys never want to lose again. Like you talk about guys that want to hate losing. it it's really easy to hate losing based on some of the things you hear out of those practices the days after losses. And I bet they come out with a pretty big statement to make. Now, there's more on stakes, or there's a lot more stakes to this game than just that. And I want to talk some about like what this week means for Houston coming off the Tech game, and how like the season is far from over. Obviously, you're halfway through Big 12 play and a second